I'm Tracy Austin, your host of the People Strategy Podcast. This show provides interviews with organizational leaders and ongoing coaching experiences that highlight elevating people in organizations through a people strategy roadmap.
I think it's okay and it's healthy sometimes for teams to have conflict and work through that conflict, because you're only going to be able to, work past those issues.
Welcome back to the People Strategy Podcast. My name is Tracy Austin, and I am your host. And we are in the middle of our leadership development series with our guest, Adam Gruszcynski with Potawatomi Casino Hotel. So, Adam, welcome back.
For the fifth time. Thank you, Tracy. Glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to keeping this conversation going.
Yeah, so if we wanted to do a quick recap, we have talked about what is leadership. We've talked about coaching. We have talked about employee engagement. We've talked about how do we hold folks accountable, and all of those. Do you notice how these things kind of build upon each other?
They do. They build upon each other, and a lot of the things we talk about within each section, we're referencing things we've already discussed previously on those topics. So it's all intricately related.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, we only have 180 some podcasts out there. So there's other ones that if you want to dig in, we did a series a couple months back called our Team Retention Series. And we had a podcast there called Power of Trust, which is a key ingredient for effective teamwork. So as we look at really building teams, trust is a key piece of that. And today we're going to chat a little bit about how do we create and design great teams? And specifically within that, how do we, as leaders, foster that teamwork inside of teams? So one of the questions I love to ask our listeners and anyone that, I first start chatting with is, have you ever been a part of an amazing team?
Yes. I'm a little biased with my answer. I have two answers. One, my current team that I think I have assembled here in the IT department currently is awesome. It took a little while to get all the pieces put together, but now that everyone's been here and they're kind of looking at what we're doing here and seeing the future, it's been a lot of fun to work with this team. Not only am I proud of what has come together, I mean, I've learned quite a bit from each individual, especially those that are I'll call outside eyes, that are more newer to the organization, where they've worked outside in other organizations and maybe even other verticals, that they bring that different perspective that I'm not necessarily used to, and have challenged me to think differently and learn and grow. So I've been really proud of this team that I'm currently working with. But staying within the Potawatomi eco-structure, there was a team and some people who worked here that are no longer here that I really worked well with. And I think one of the things that was more when I was a doer and not so much, in a leadership position, that when I was doing the work, there was about 4 or 5 of us that, each had a specific niche in what they did and did not do, but were very wanting to help each other when and where they could, because just everybody wanted to learn. And there wasn't like specific silos where you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. It's kind of you're master of none, but enough to be dangerous of all the other things, right? So when opportunity, presented itself to maybe do some database administration, which I wasn't necessarily, my forte, I could go and help and learn. So that way I could make, myself, more knowledgeable on the situation. And if something came up, help out where maybe if I didn't get that experience, I would not be able to. And that collaborative and that cohesiveness just fed really well, and everybody just, worked really well together and helped out and knew what everyone else was doing, and how, as part of a team, all the things that we were responsible for came together and worked to the bigger picture of whatever the project we were working on. And that was really fun to be part of when I was actually doing it.
Yeah. And what I love about what you just described is you're describing the strategy that the team is executing, right? And different teams have different strategies they're executing. If you're talking about the infrastructure, that's a very specific strategy that requires a very specific skill set versus,
Correct.
you may have a team that is building something brand new that really has to do a lot of trial and error, whereas another team may be, really doing the executing. And I know we talked about this in a previous podcast, but within that, as we're looking at that, we need to ensure we've got the right people on the team with the right skill set. So it's, fit to role and fit to team, as we talked about in our employee engagement episode. So we're going to kind of take that a little bit further. And I'm curious, what, you talked a lot about collaboratively working together to achieve that goal. So from your perspective, what are some of those key things that really stop those goals from happening because of some fear relating to, the synergy within the team?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that can be roadblocks that prevent that from happening. And one is, I don't want to share what I know, because if other people know it, I might not have a job. And that is a fear that I think individuals have, that if I compartmentalize the information I have job security because no one else can do my job. And when I was I had the exact opposite. I wanted everybody to know everything I knew. So on the weekends, if something broke, I wasn't the only one able to take a phone call that someone else could. So I could go, enjoy my time with my family, or go golfing or go camping, and not worrying about getting, hey, this is broken, stop everything you're doing. Like, I wanted to share that. Not everybody has that mindset. Some people really want to keep it to themselves so that, they have that false sense of job security. Another thing is, maybe they're just not very collaborative people, and that's okay. Some people prefer being more isolated, not necessarily engaging with others, working alone, very task oriented, like, give me the work, I want to do it by myself. That's okay. That's just managing to a different skill set of the people who can, comprise your team, where others might more thrive in that environment. Like, yes, I want to work with 2 or 3 people. I will do this third of the project. You do that third. The other person does that third. And we'll all come together when our parts are done to make sure that they fit together nicely. That's okay. It's just, again, managing to the strengths of the team and how they want to be led. The other thing I can think of that might pose a roadblock is if you have to work with people outside of your department. Maybe that is a problem, where there could be different philosophies, different cultures within the same organization. You're all working to the same goal, but you have different cultures and management styles in place. And if you have to collaborate, that could pose a problem and make things more difficult.
Yeah, and what I so much love about what you just talked about is it really walked through. I might share my screen now that this is the first time on a podcast I've shared a screen. Are we ready? You essentially just walked through the 5 dysfunctions of a team from Patrick Lencioni, right? And so that very first
almost like I
one
teed that up nicely for you to do your first screen sharing session on a podcast.
What was that?
It's like I almost teed you up nicely to share your first screen sharing session on a podcast.
I know, and it wasn't even, well, I mean, I did have the slide up, but I wasn't planning on sharing it. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
The absence of trust really is one of those key things that you talked about, right? Like, if I'm afraid someone else is going to take the work, or I'm not going to have a job, and there's a lack of trust in the organization, a team member, a leader, what happens is we don't allow those things to be shared. So, that shows up as invulnerability. Whereas, like, when we're vulnerable and saying, hey, I want everyone to know it, whether I have a job or not, because, hey, there's other things over here that are bigger upsides to it. Now we're going to get into a coaching conversation, Adam. We're not, however, but that's
how it all ties together. Because
what was that?
That's how, I mean, we're built. We talked about coaching, and it's all intricately tied together. And here's another example.
Yeah, for sure. And, that next section is really that fear of conflict, right? So It's like, hey, if we have the folks that really don't want to collaborate with others, and there are certain jobs where, yes, we need to, have that time, that quiet time to really focus. But if there's a fear of collaboration, there really tends to be a fear of conflict. So, like, if I don't have to deal with people, then I don't have to deal with conflict, right?
Right.
And typically what happens is we just say yes, or that's fine, or cool. Like, I will notice for myself, if I say fine, that typically is a trigger word for me that tells me things are not fine, but I just don't want to deal with the conflict that will come from that. And then,
and I think, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, on that conflict piece, I think it's okay and it's healthy sometimes for teams to have conflict and work through that conflict, because you're only going to be able to, work past those issues and become stronger as if you have that time to go through those issues. I know there was one time here when I was on a team myself and another individual were having a spirited discussion where our voices, got a little loud in a conference room, and it was just the two of us talking through our different points of view on what we think we should do, and we weren't agreeing on how to do it. And there was two individuals who bursted into the conference room because what they heard as yelling, and they wanted to make sure everything was okay. And I'm like, we're good. We're just, working through this. Please let us be. And unfortunately, a byproduct is our voices are getting louder because, you must be right if you're talking louder than the other individual. But we got,
the unwritten norms, right?
Yes, right. And that conversation lasted for a little bit. We came to terms. We weren't necessarily friendly towards each other for the rest of the day, but when we came back to work the next day, we were like, all right, we got through that. Let's go. Let's work together and let's make this thing happen. And that's natural. That's okay. And sometimes you need those, spirited discussions with other members of your team to get through that and make the journey better to whatever you are trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like with that conflict, if we think about where does conflict come from, it's because, all right, I'm approaching something from one viewpoint, right? Like I'm approaching it from this viewpoint and you're approaching it from another viewpoint. And so it's multiple competing priorities. And there's a point where multiple competing priorities intersect, and that's where the good stuff comes out of it, right? Because if we don't have those conversations really around where those multiple competing priorities intersect, that's natural conflict that helps us to make the best decisions. Because if you're looking at it from a budget perspective and I'm looking at it from a quality perspective and someone else is looking at it from, an infrastructure perspective that aligns all of the things together, there's going to be pieces where your most important piece is dollars, most important piece is time over here, most important piece over here is the highest quality outcome. Guess what? There will be conflict in that. And when we can really create and walk through how we have that conflict and have it stay focused on problem resolution versus getting personal about the person, then we can solve it. But the issue is conflict sometimes becomes very personal.
Correct. Yeah, I would. Yeah, you don't want it ever to become personal because that is a hard thing to come back from once you take it to that line. But yeah, healthy conflict is okay.
Yeah, for sure. So, as we talk about teams today, we've talked about how do we build trust with the team, which is through being vulnerable with our team and sharing a little bit. I know with our teams, we start all of our meetings with, just kind of a status update. It could be a personal status update. It could be, a work win or a personal win, because it helps us to really get to know each other as people.
Sure.
And I know as we were prepping for the call today, you shared a little bit about all of the books that I've piled on your plate from the podcast and that your wife thinks you're a slow reader. I'm like, oh, Interesting.
Yes. We have a spirited debate how I think I read just fine, and I don't know how she reads books as fast as she does. But that's a discussion for a different podcast. I think another thing
for skipping words.
Besides being vulnerable as being a team builder, I think just simply doing what you say you're going to do and showing that you can deliver, holds you accountable, that your word, if I'm going to have something done by this time, or you need this, I will have this to you by when. That just helps build layers of foundational trust within your team that is going to make your team, more synergetic and more cooperative and a much better functioning team.
Yeah, you just went to our third level of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, which is that lack of commitment and ambiguity, which then goes into avoidance of accountability and low standards. So if we look at those two kind of layers together, that lack of commitment and that ambiguity comes in because we don't want to be held accountable, or it's much easier to blame somebody else. Well, you didn't tell me that, or okay, so where's the responsibility of finding out, right? We talked about cascading goals last week. of,
Mhm.
tying our team together so that we're all rowing in the same direction to hit that same goal.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I can think of examples where
Oh, we want to
people,
hear. I want to hear all of the examples.
people on my team were not delivering, and instead of just owning up to it and to a degree owning up that I dropped the ball, I was not able to deliver, builds a layer of trust that I was supposed to do this, but I let you guys down. I'm sorry, I'll be better. This is why. They were building like fluff excuses to why they couldn't do whatever it is they were supposed to deliver. They were blaming outside sources, or this thing happened and it took me away, while everyone could see through those as if those are just being, cover-ups as to the heart of the problem of why you didn't do it. And sometimes if you just own up to it, that helps you even build that layer of trust amongst your team too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that trust is essentially that first layer. And I'm going to throw a coaching hat on for a second, but it's getting underneath and going, all right, why are we not owning up to what's there? What specifically is that? And there's typically some sort of a fear there or whatever it is, but the bottom line is it starts to erode trust. And so it's like I will look at things for me or for folks on my team where I haven't met something, I'm going, well, why didn't I do it? Because I didn't know how to do it, or now I feel stupid about it, or I hit a deadline, or whatever that is. And as a team, when we design that accountability within the team, we're also creating the questions that allow us to name, okay, yep, I know this is due on Friday, but if we ask on Wednesday about it, now we're bringing up the conversation now. So we haven't yet missed the deadline because we've designed the accountability and we're starting to design the conversations and the trust in it, which creates trust among the team members to hit the goal as a team versus them being individual siloed goals.
Right. And I think you touched on something where as a team, you have a deadline, but if for reasons that you can hear or see that there's certain members of the team who might not be making that deadline, the individual members of the team are stepping up by saying, hey, all right, this is due Friday. I'm going to check in with this individual on Wednesday to make sure they have everything they need. They didn't encounter a roadblock that needs to be removed, that you're helping build the solidity of the team by helping the individual, even though you might not be the person in the role of leadership of that team, you're stepping up and being that leader that the team needs at that point, which is, I think, a great quality of anyone who makes up a team.
The People Strategy Podcast is sponsored by the Leadership Development Program offered through Elevated Talent Consulting. Do you have folks in your organization that have just been promoted from the doer to the leader? Well, we have a program specifically for you that trains on the specific ways for an individual to be a leader versus to be the doer of all of the things. In this program, we partner with learners to experience and create their own leadership around time management, delegation, coaching, accountability, and change management. Head to the link at the bottom of this page to find out more and sign up. One of the things that we found to be very helpful is we've got an issues portion that becomes a part of every meeting, and we use software to do this, right? So we're using Predictive Index Perform, where we've got an issues tab where every, if I'm working on something and I hit a roadblock, I'm going to go throw it in there as an issue. Or in our Monday.com, if there's something I'm working on and I'm stuck, I'm going to change that thing to stuck, and that's going to come up in our weekly meeting, because one of the keys here is designing the accountability as a team so that if I'm in there and I see someone else is stuck, I don't have to wait until the meeting. I can quick, send them a Teams and say, hey, what's going on with this? Is there something I can quickly unblock? And again, they're seeing, oh, everybody's paying attention, and that reach out tells me that they're willing to help, which increases the trust. It increases the conversations, which decreases that conflict, and it increases the lack of it increases the commitment to each other.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't use Monday.com anymore, but we did. And that was one of the things I liked most about it is it was a snapshot of what everyone's working on, good, bad, or indifferent, that you could see, hey, this person might be stuck at this point. Can I help them in some way, shape, or form? Have I experienced that? And having tools that allow that collaborativeness just help the situation so much more.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we've got, ensuring that we've got clear accountability at every level, and then, really paying attention to those results. Because at the end of the day, we're all here to accomplish something, and we all get excited about accomplishing whatever that is. And when we can celebrate those wins as a team and individual, it starts to snowball those. So I'm so curious, how do you celebrate and appreciate each other on your team that really snowballs and increases that teamwork and accountability?
Oh, good. That's a good question.
Put you on the spot.
You're putting me on the spot of how we celebrate team wins. We've had a lot of recent, big projects here at the organization. We opened a brand new sports book, and we just, to celebrate that win, got lunch for everybody in the department, and we're a 24/7 shop, and not everybody works the same shift. So we made sure that first, second, and third shifters all had, whatever we were doing, available to them, because it takes all three shifts to make this department, be as successful as it is. So we do like group functions like that. Put me on the spot. That was like the best example I could come up with so quickly. We do email shout outs. One thing I started based off of a book I read was sending out a weekly email that lists like maybe the top 5 things at most that we're looking forward to or working towards as a department. And one of the things I do at the bottom is I do like a fun fact, and I celebrate, things in that fun fact, whether somebody's celebrating a work anniversary, got a certification that, I'm proud of him or her for achieving, and I want the rest of the department to know, or we made significant headway on a project. I use that fun fact area to help communicate that to the team so everybody's aware of whatever that may be.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. And I love that kind of naming it and that public recognition as it's needed, and so there's 2 podcasts that I'll throw out as well. Rob Brady talked in his podcast episode, it's about the people, not the pump, really about how we celebrate that. And sometimes it's at the beginning of meetings, and, really celebrating folks the way they want to be celebrated or appreciated. Then Dr. White with 5 languages of appreciation also talks a little bit about that. So if you are looking for, hey, how do we truly appreciate our team and what that looks like, I'll link those 2 in the show notes as well to kind of see what that looks like.
And it can be something I've learned as easy as recognizing a birthday. That's not a work accomplishment. That's just, saying, hey, today is so-and-so's birthday, happy birthday, and then throw like a fun animated GIF out there. Just doing something like that I throw that, we use Slack here, so I throw it in our departmental channel on whatever day it is. And that is something that is easy to do, that recognizes individuals who make up your team, and it has no bearing on the work outcome. It's nice to be recognized for something simple as saying happy birthday.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that is also really fun is when folks come on board, we will do a quick survey of like, what's your favorite lunch spot close to the office? Like, what's your favorite drink, non-alcoholic? What's your favorite food? Like, what are those things, right? And, all right, all of a sudden Reese's peanut butter cups show up on your desk with a little like note, or do I have one in here? Have you seen my creepy hand yet?
Yes, we talked about the creepy hand on a previous podcast.
Okay.
So yes.
Sometimes it's the little things like this, like my creepy hands, like your hand's always in it. And by the way, yes, there is a Saturday Night Live skit about the creepy hand, which takes it in a completely different direction. However, but like, what are those fun things that you can connect over that all of a sudden show up and you're like, yep, somebody thought about me because I get a creepy little hand on my desk. So all those ways of really celebrating that team and what's there, or, taking, have you guys done the big heads where you take a picture of somebody and you blow it up in a big head and some different type of those are fun too.
We haven't. No, I've seen that. I haven't gone that far. Hold on. If you're bringing out props, let me grab a prop.
The podcast just went off the rail with teamwork.
So this is actually a good test for anybody listening to this podcast when it gets released in the IT department, because no one has commented on this, and I am waiting for the day for somebody to put two and two together and say, aha, I see what you're doing, Adam. So I mentioned very simply just wishing somebody a happy birthday. So one night I was reading my daughter a book that she picked for her bedtime story, and it happened to be a Dr. Seuss book. And it happened to be happy birthday to you. So what I do when I wish everybody a happy birthday is I take one page from the Dr. Seuss book and I put it as part of their birthday message. And I've been doing it for about 3 months, and nobody in my department has said a word about what I'm talking about in Cat Roo and a birthday bird and how it's special for you and no one else. Here's the hint, people in IT, say something, and the first person who says something might get a special treat.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
That's my little soapbox rant of something cute that I've tried to do to incorporate to make everybody's birthday feel special. And it, something as simple as that, goes a long way.
As we go back to the employee engagement episode last week, right? Like all of these things tie together for sure.
100%. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So as we look at, how do we really create that great teamwork? So much of it has to do with, that synergy between the team members. It's trust. It is, that vulnerability, that peer accountability. Like if I know I can trust Adam to do what Adam says he's going to do, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And what we do is we start to raise the bar on expectations within the department. And that ripples throughout the rest of the organization as well. And so much of this has to do with this nucleus of your team. Oh, go ahead. You had something.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about raising the bar. I mean, one of the things that I hammered home when I was a manager of the cybersecurity team here is I wanted to create a mission, vision, and goals for our team. And I don't remember exactly how it phrased, but part of our mission or vision, one of them was to be the gold star that the rest of the department wants to be. Like, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Focus about what we're here to do and what our tasks and our responsibilities are, and take care of ourselves and set that bar high to raise the expectations then for all the other teams to either try to meet us or beat us. And then that just, by you taking care of yourself, it helps, foster competitive, healthy growth of the department, which then just betters the organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, leadership drives teamwork, right? And so when we think about that, leadership drives teamwork. What are some of those key areas where leadership does drive teamwork?
When I was preparing for this podcast and you kind of gave me a little, prep notes, one of the things I was thinking about was sometimes being a leader of a team, you need to recognize skills that may not be fully developed in other team members and work to bring those out, because you think that this person may be able to benefit the team or the organization if there's just a little time spent nurturing and caring for this one area of this person that has, the potential to do really good. And they just maybe not see it or believe in themselves yet, that you constantly work to bring that out and grow that. And it might be frustrating at first because the person might be down and say, well, I can't do that, or that's not what I do. But if you work at it and, you should work with them and show that, hey, start small, do this. All right, you did that really well. Great job. Now do this. And then they build that confidence, and like that light bulb moment goes on and says, hey, I can do this. And now your team even becomes more dynamic because you're able to foster that internal growth within one of the team members. Like that is helps make teams be really successful. Another thing is just the power of positivity and praise, that, easy recognitions of just saying thank you or nice job, or, if you're using an instant messaging tool, giving the thumbs up, the high five, or like if you really killed something, show the bicep flexing like you just killed it, right? Like doing stuff like that is very simple. It requires very little effort, can be a little bit fun, but does well to just build that team camaraderie.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we use predictive index perform for our team that outlines all of our meetings, but it also has kudos built within it, and really giving those kudos or those pulses, letting folks know, hey, that was really impactful to me, and that appreciation is huge for it. And then also, naming that back to the person allows them to really know and hear it so that they will repeat it. Because here's the thing, we tend to repeat things that we know about, good or bad, sometimes, right? And so want to make sure that we are sharing that feedback and that information so that it continues and that it grows. Because if we know folks are personally invested in us, we're more than likely going to be personally invested in them, because that is going to grow that relationship.
Yep. And I think another thing a person in leadership can do with their team is, if you get positivity about your team from other departments, share that 100%, because if other departments are recognizing individuals or the team as a whole as doing something really well, or, making the environment, better or more successful, sharing that with them helps build that confidence, and that, hey, we're doing it, we got it, let's keep going. And it helps just feed more productivity and more positiveness to the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we start to wrap up today, what are the nuggets that you're taking away from our call that you're like, I just want to make sure folks hear this because it was something really impactful to me?
Before we do that, I want to kind of flip it up on you, because we have this, wrap it up kind of segment. But, today is Friday, the 25th. It is very close to Halloween. And I know a lot of areas celebrate trick or treat this weekend. I'm curious, Tracy, are you doing anything fun for Halloween coming up?
Ooh, I love this question. And I think that this podcast actually drops on Thanksgiving, or maybe it's the week after. I don't remember. So we've got both gratitude and Halloween fun. So all of the things. So for Halloween, I have not done much this year or planned on it. However, my favorite Halloween memory is when my son dressed up in one of those big blow up.
Oh, sure. Yep.
It was like the big blow up things. And then his best friend comes over and he's like a Van Gogh painting. And I'm like, what is happening here? Right. And so it's just the fun things. But I will say, we get very few kids in our neighborhood. So I always go buy the full size candy bars and I just watch the eyes pop. And that is so much fun. Especially when it's like the little pumpkins that come up that are little pumpkins, and they're so cute. How about you?
So where I grew up, trick or treat and Halloween was, just a day. But where I moved to now, I can't believe the subdivision we in. Like they go, I don't want to say overboard, because I enjoy it and my kids love it, but they take it to another level where all the houses are decorated with blow ups, and lights at night, and fully animatronic robots, and yards that do all kinds of things. So they go really big in our subdivision, and our trick or treat is this upcoming weekend. So we have a big party, kind of in collaboration with our neighbor. So there's just a big gathering of us having, bonfires on our cul-de-sac while we hand out candy and take the kids trick or treating. So it's a fun time for us.
The adult trick or treating and the kids trick or treating, correct?
Correct. Which amazing. I was walking in with somebody at work today, and he's not native to Wisconsin, and we were talking about having the adult tricks, and he's like, that's something that only Wisconsinites do. And I was like, what? I'm like, I just assumed, because that's all I knew, that was something that was done everywhere. He's like, nah, I was Texas, Las Vegas, on the East Coast. That's a pure Wisconsin thing. I said, well,
yeah, we all
all right. Yeah.
We don't have bags, we have cups. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. So as to build teamwork, there's so many fun things you can do with that, as well as, desk decorating contests and all of the things. So
yep, which we did do that here in our department. Is we had a Halloween decorating cube contest within our help desk team, and we took a vote and awarded a prize for the person who had the best decorated cube. So that was kind of a fun thing we did this year for the first time.
All right. So when this goes out on all the social media stuff, even though it's going to be after Halloween, we might still need to see the desks. So with that, this episode is brought to you by the Leadership Development Program on behalf of Elevated Talent Consulting. And so this is one of the topics that we will cover in that program. And if you are curious now about the 5 dysfunctions of a team and looking for that training with your team, that is something that we definitely offer. So thank you so much, Adam, for chatting with us about Halloween and teamwork and all of the things today, and the tear out of the Happy Birthday book. I'm so excited for that, to actually hear who wins that. So, amazing.
Well, thanks for having me again, Tracy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.
You too. Take care. Be good.
Thank you so much for listening today. I'd love to connect with you. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn at Tracy, TRACI Austin, and at our website at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. If you'd love to learn more about our process, please reach out to us. And again, thank you so much for listening and sharing your feedback with us through a review. Have a fantastic day.